Wanji, it's great to see you again.
Great to see you too.
And we're recording this on a Wednesday, so we could say Happy Wednesday at the end of April 25. Um, let's just jump into the kind of current employment climate. One of the things that we track a lot here at VOCA, we look at the number of job openings versus the number of job seekers. And, 2 years ago, that was like for every job seeker there were three job openings, and then it's kind of hit parity at the end of the year 24 into 25, and it may actually be shifting in the other direction. We're not really sure. um, and it can kind of freak people out. In fact, we were at a seminar yesterday by Inc. magazine, and they asked everybody, like, how many of you are worried about tariffs? And like everybody raised their hand. And then they said, how many of you have actually been affected by tariffs? And in a room of like 200 people, like three people raised their hand. So there's a vibe shift of certainly. So talk a bit about how we should think and act as we think about our careers in the face of a cyclical shift.
Yeah, so I think for me, what I would say is you've got to figure out kind of how to navigate, a kind of tumultuous environment. And the best thing that you can do during times like this is to kind of control what you can actually control.
Hmm.
So it's unlikely that on an individual basis, any of us are going to control, the economy single-handedly, right? So I wouldn't spend a ton of time worrying about that. Instead, I think again, you focus on what you can control. So what does that include? Kind of yourself, your skills, and I would use this as a time to upskill, and really think about, gee, I've got this kind of toolbox already full of, experiences and skills, but how can I continue to upskill and enhance those skills? And so one obvious thing everyone can be doing right now to enhance their skills is to really kind of get better acquainted with AI.
Yeah.
So whether it is part of your former job and experience, you don't have to be an engineer. Um, every single company is really thinking hard about not just AI like in a core product, if they even have a core product that could benefit from AI, but people are thinking about how their environments can benefit from AI, and that comes down to kind of the product level, the organization level, the team level, the individual level. So the more that you can do to upskill yourself there. And I think I'd start at the individual level. Again, the things
Hmm.
you can control, right? Sort of how can you get a better understanding and better acquainted with AI to improve and enhance your own life, to create capacity in your own day? Because I think those are great enhancements that'll make you just a more interesting choice. And so, as you cited, what you learned recently or heard at a conference, there are fewer roles in play now, right? So we all have to think about how can I make myself more competitive for those
Hmm.
roles. So once you kind of do that, then I would maybe kind of think about my network, leveraging my network. How do I network better? And then as you think about networking, it's not just kind of going out and like asking everyone to help you, right? It's also finding opportunities to collaborate across your network. So maybe
Hmm.
you have, now that you've been, you know, enhancing your skills and getting better upskilled on AI. Maybe you have an opportunity now to collaborate and help someone else, which in turn could be a great opportunity for you to kind of leverage what you've learned and those skills enhancements, but also to help someone else. And I would say, as you think about networking, don't just think about kind of how can Chip help me, but I should be thinking about how can I help Chip?
I love it. I love that. I love that question. I'll answer it after we're done. Um, what's your say a little bit more about your AI journey. Like
Mhm.
how have
Yeah.
you, like, what did you do to kind of up level your skills in that area? How do you use it on a, like, you've got a demanding job at Pinterest, and like
Yeah.
what's it look like for you personally? And maybe there's some things you're doing on the enterprise level that might be interesting to our listeners too.
Yeah, so for me, in my role at Pinterest, I think about it kind of in three dimensions. I think about the fact that we've been using AI for some time in our core product, which is the Pinterest platform, which, is a platform that people use to get inspiration, right? So it's a search and kind of discovery platform. And so we've been using it there so that we can make the right recommendations for you as you search for things on our platform. So that's kind of one dimension. The next dimension I think about is kind of at the company slash team level, right? So
Mm.
beyond engineering and using it in our product, how can we as how can myself as a senior executive who has responsibility over a few different areas, how can I leverage it within my team? Why is that important? Well, that's important because last time I spoke to my CFO, she did not say, Wanji, we're going to give you a lot more money and more resources and more headcount to do great things. In fact, it was just the opposite. It was like, yeah, we're not going to give you any more money. But we need more out of you. We need you to do
We
more.
need more
So
great things for less money.
less money and fewer resources. So as I think about kind of how can I continue to do great things, add value to the organization with fewer resources, I have to create capacity kind of within my own team. And so, for example, this year or really last year when we were kind of planning for 2025, I really challenged my team to think about how each of them can be leveraging AI tools to make our work more efficient. So everything from, I've got teams of people who work on contracts, right? So our revenue is derived through advertising, and so we need to enter into contracts with advertisers. Some of them are, kind of smaller advertisers, so they're more kind of like routine contracts, kind of sign here. Some are more bespoke when you're dealing with kind of the number one, two, three, four, five largest kind of retailers in the country or in the world, frankly. Those are more bespoke agreements. And so, how can we think about leveraging AI tools to more efficiently kind of draft, review our contracts, for example? How can we use them to kind of draft pleadings that we need to draft,
Hmm.
for example, for my litigators? How can we use AI to kind of keep abreast of trends globally on the regulatory front, right? So there's a lot of regulation impacting our space right now, kind of whether it's related to online safety, online youth safety,
Mm.
privacy, copyright, just generally kind of, internet services and social media. So we're using AI to kind of track those developments as well. And those are things we would have leveraged kind of more people or resources internally or leveraged a law firm or a consultant externally. And now we're finding ways again to create capacity to do those things internally. And then on a personal level, I am also thinking about, gee, like how can I leverage AI personally, like on an individual level at work? And just a few examples. So, as you might imagine, as a senior executive, I'm often frequently called upon to speak to large groups of people at my company. So, whether it's at a company town hall, whether it's at a department town hall, whether it's speaking to kind of select teams and individuals. So, I will now leverage AI. I'm a chat GPT user. I will leverage AI to come up with thought starters
Mm.
and opening remarks. And that's a huge time save. So whereas I would have spent kind of the night before,
Right.
an hour or two kind of polishing opening remarks, can they land? Can they be witty enough? I'm now leveraging AI to kind of generate templates for me to do that. In addition, when I do have occasion to hire direct reports, it always starts with my HR partners and my talent acquisition team within HR saying, okay, Wanji, we at least need you to put together kind of some requirements for the job.
It's
Okay, so
spec.
that then a job spec, exactly. So then that results in historically, that would result in my saying, can't do that today. I'm going to do that over the weekend. Oh, wow, it's already Sunday night. I'm going to do that during the week. Oh, wow, like, I'll just wait till the weekend. Okay, so then 2 weeks later, I finally sit down and spend a couple of hours kind of brainstorming and thinking about it. Now I'm using ChatGPT to help me kind of do that. And that's taking, once I kind of generate a first cut, I'm spending like at best another 15, 20 minutes on it tops, and then I'm done. And I think for many tasks like that, it's the getting started part that is the hardest. Once you kind of get into it, it kind of takes off. But I'm just finding there's so many ways that I can save time and be more efficient. And then that frees me up to spend time on what's more important and kind of what brings me joy, which are things like, how do I manage my team, kind of engage my team members and employees so that they are kind of energized about what we're doing. How do I kind of spend more time on strategy, thinking about where our business is going, kind of how my team can align to that and kind of, be in service of our strategy. So again, I think we can all be thinking about, whether it's on an individual level, whether it's on a team level, whether it's on like a company product level, we all have an opportunity to do that. And that's what I've been telling my team. Don't just look at me to do it. You can do this yourself and you will benefit from this. Again, you will free up time, and whether
Yep.
you don't have to free up time and pour it back into, the company, free up time and, so you can exercise more, like,
Of
and
a life,
work on
right?
yourself and what have you. Yeah.
That's really good. I think it's a huge flag if somebody doesn't have a good answer to the AI, like how are you using AI question at any level, and so this is an opportunity to do that. Things are constrained. You talked about networking and collaborating. I wonder how you. Two more questions just on the season, um, that are related. So one is what would you say to people who are thinking about making a job move now, and it's sort of more macro is how should we be thinking we want to show up during the season, which kind of maybe goes back to your networking thing, because like if it's a time of contraction, people are a bit nervous and stuff. How do we want to show up to our network in a time like that?
Yeah. So I guess two questions there, I think. So the first one, in terms of, how would I advise people looking to make a move now? Again, it all goes back to controlling the things you can control. So you want to be in a position where you have, the latitude to make a move now, and you may be forced to make a move. So that's kind of
That's right.
one dimension.
Voluntold. Yes.
Voluntold, or you may be reading the tea leaves, like, ooh, time's running out. I better get going. And so you want to be ready for that. I mean, I think genuinely you always want to be ready, but on a personal level, I would think about, sort of, am I financially equipped to kind of make a move right now, right? Knowing that, again, if you're in a position where you might be reading the tea leaves and it might be looking like, oh, wow, time's almost up, just making sure that you are, not in a spending spree mode, but you are saving, you are managing your debt, you are kind of being fiscally responsible so that you have the luxury of, kind of not just jumping at the first thing that you see, but choosing wisely. So I think that's really important. And that's something you can control personally. So I would certainly do that. In terms of how one thinks about showing up during this time, again, when we're in an environment where there are, more people looking for roles than there are roles, you have to think about, like, how am I going to differentiate myself, right? And so I think that comes down to not just your, sort of the two dimensions that as I think about hiring people, the two things that I look for, if I have to distill it down, are skill and fit. And so I would be thinking about, gee, you know, uh, as I look for my next role, like, what are the skills that I bring to the table, and how can I make sure that I am adequately in a position to demonstrate those skills and the value that they will bring to kind of whatever role I'm pursuing or whatever type of opportunity I'm pursuing. And then fit is, fit's like it's hard for me to say,
Hmm.
like, fit is these three things. Like, fit is just all about, it's a two-way street, right? It's about you finding the right organization and environment where you feel like you can be your best self and kind of be who you are. But it's also about, like, how do you collaborate with others? How do you kind of fit in with others? How do you kind of enhance a team versus detract from a team? And I think we've all seen examples of this. So at a minimum, you can reflect on your own experience and say, okay, there was that time where this person joined the team and it was not so great. Then there was the time where this other person joined the team and it was amazing. And kind of think about, like, sort of try to unpack, like, what made each of those two experiences good or bad, and kind of then reflect on yourself and how you show up and how people receive you when you show up. And, again, you want to put your best foot forward. You're in a competitive environment.
I think that's really good. I mean, that was one of the questions somebody asked. Well, a mentor asked me before COVID, like early COVID. Everything was crazy, and he just said, this is going to be over, and someday, which is the cyclical piece that you're dialing into, and people are going to remember. They might not remember you at all if you don't show up, but if you do show up, they're going to remember how.
Yeah,
And that
absolutely.
was great advice just to think about what kind of trail do I want to leave behind through a season like this.
I think that's great. And I think if you think about this cycle, I mean, we all thought, like, COVID, oh my gosh, that was nuts. We'll never see anything like that. I think this is like COVID on steroids. So,
Wow.
I think we need to really be thinking about that. So I think that's great advice as well.
That's cool. So let's talk. Let's just broaden the lens a little bit. So we're talking about specifically for this moment, but in general, what are some like what are some like two or three top of the list career advice, best practices you would love to give younger people,
Yeah.
your daughters? I don't know if my daughters don't listen to me as a career advisor, but I don't know if
I
yours
have
do.
one who does and one who doesn't.
Yeah, that's the way it works. But like, what would you say? Like, what would like these are the like core things you just need to know or
Yes, so
do.
we already talked about enhancing your skills.
Yes.
That's within your control. Whether you're
Yeah.
working full time or not, you can do that. So do that. I would say think about how you kind of present yourself to the world. So
Hmm.
everything from strengthening your LinkedIn profile. If you don't have a LinkedIn profile, get a LinkedIn profile. And don't just make it generic like everybody else's. I would spend time, and I have done this before, looking at LinkedIn, searching for people who are kind of in your space or the space you want to be in, and looking at the profiles. And you'll quickly, the ones that are really good will jump out at you, and you'll go, oh
Interesting.
my gosh. And I would use that as a guide as to how best to put your, best foot forward on LinkedIn. So strengthening your LinkedIn profile, that is important. In addition, think about your resume and your cover letters. And I would take time to tailor those as you find opportunities. I know there's this sort of, I'm just going to blanket the world with my one kind of standard resume and cover letter, and I get it. It's hard to tailor, but it's important to tailor because it goes back to what I was talking about before around, everyone's using AI. Well, the
Hmm.
folks who are screening resumes and cover letters, they're not sitting down and reading those anymore. They are using AI. So machine learning and AI are going to have to pick up on keywords. If you don't have those keywords, it doesn't matter how awesome you are, you may get overlooked. And so
Yeah.
again, with so few roles and so many people, you want to figure out how do I position myself to even get someone to look at my resume and consider me and think about whether or not I am the best person for the role. So I think those things are important. And then finally, I would say networking. Networking is huge. And even though I said this is like COVID times on steroids, the good news is we're able to go outside. So, get
That's
out,
true.
go to events, go network, speak at events. There's got to be something you can speak about. And if you enhance your skills
Hmm.
on AI, you can go speak about that. You don't, again, you don't have to be an engineer to speak about AI. So, get out there, speak, gain visibility. As I mentioned before, as you think about networking, don't just think about what's in it for you. Think about kind of how to be a collaborative networker, which is like, how can I help someone else? Because you'll be surprised to learn as you're helping other people, you will be helping yourself in the process. And then finally, I know I said networking was final, but final is you got to stay positive. And you got to be persistent. This is not going to be I'm going to send one resume and stick the landing. That may happen, but that's highly unusual. It is a numbers game. You've got to stick to it. You got to be out there. You got to be persistent. You got to be positive. And so stay the course. It will happen, but you have to stay the course.
It's great. What do you think about the scenario where um, you have an opportunity to do something, but it's not necessarily perfect?
Mhm. Yeah.
How do you
So
navigate that?
that is an interesting question. So I think it depends upon your situation and circumstances. So I am not so cavalier to sit here and say, well, turn down all the good things until you find the perfect thing. No. Sometimes it is a matter of, I got to get back in the game.
Hmm.
And so you have to determine, all right, well, it's not perfect. It's not like my dream kind of role or job or company, but I do need to work. I completely respect that. You may have to hold your nose and work. Now, everyone has their limits. Like I'm not suggesting you get into a situation that's, super toxic and bad for your mental well-being. But you probably don't want to sacrifice at that level. But you may have to be in an environment where you're like, you know what, this is a stepping stone. But at least if you can get your mind around this is a stepping stone and I'm just passing through, again, it doesn't mean I'm passive and I'm not kind of doing good work. It just means this is not my final resting place. I am just really going to crush it while I'm here because
Hmm.
it's going to lead me to the next thing. Then, that'll inform kind of how you kind of keep your head up waiting for the next thing, but at least you've got security in the thing you
It
have.
feeds that optimism you were talking about just a second ago.
Definitely, because you're
Yeah.
just again, I'm just passing through here, Chip. You may be here forever. I'm not here forever, but I'm going to make a good impression because the other thing I'll mention about networking, and especially now with, kind of in a post-technological environment,
Hmm.
the world is so small. And I can't
Yeah.
even begin to tell you how many people call me to say, "Oh, do you know so and so? They worked with you, 25 years ago." And sometimes I'm going, don't know that person. But other times I'm like, I do know that person. And, and then I always caveat with, if it wasn't a great experience, I always caveat with, okay, I worked with that person 25 years ago. They may have evolved. I'd like to think I'm a different person now.
Right.
But it was maybe not the best experience. Or I can say, my gosh, that person was a superstar. Again, it was 25 years ago. I can only imagine they would be like a superstar by now. So you've got to think about the fact that, you don't want to burn any bridges.
Hmm.
And you want to, kind of cultivate your network authentically. It doesn't mean you're not best friends with everyone. You're not going to keep in touch with everyone because there are only 24 hours in a day. But you want, to your earlier point, you want people to have a good impression about you, even if you are just passing through.
To add value wherever you go.
Absolutely.
Some of the folks I've talked to, and you've made a lot of moves, so I wonder if this place, like they just, like you said, you crush it where you are. They signed up for where they were. They took on assignments that other people didn't want,
Yep.
and did a great job. And that just opened more and more doors. It was like a compounding effect or a
Oh yeah,
snowball effect.
it's a bit of a flywheel. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And you'll go from there for
So
sure.
you don't have to worry about. I think it's really important to emphasize what you just said about stepping stone. And in a sense, every position's a stepping stone,
Absolutely.
especially today.
Completely.
Like nobody stays anywhere forever.
No, never.
And even if you stay at the same company for a long time, you won't work there forever.
No.
So
And hopefully you'll have different roles. You won't
yeah,
have to be doing the
yeah,
same thing for 30 years.
no, it just doesn't work that way. So it's like, yeah, it's a little bit of bloom where you're planted.
Yeah,
If you got life gives you lemons, make lemonades kind of mindset.
definitely.
Um, let's flip the script a little bit. You are on the other side of the table sometimes hiring people, and you see people approach you for help finding a job at Pinterest. You see resumes and cover letters and everything. What are some of the things that people are doing that are making this whole process much more difficult than it needs to be?
Yeah. So I mentioned before, definitely leverage your network and just sort of try to be strategic about your network. So, for example, sometimes I will meet someone at a conference who will say, "Oh, I really think you need to meet my friend SpongeBob. He is great and he's looking for work." And then, of course, I feel like I can't say, "No, I'm not interested in that." So I say, "Sure." And then they introduce me to that person again. So in this example, this is someone I don't know who's introduced me to someone I don't know.
Two don't knows.
Who don't knows, right?
Right.
So then I meet SpongeBob and I give him 20 minutes of my time. And he says, I want to send you my resume so you can see if there are any jobs that I should apply for at Pinterest. Okay, that's a big red X. Because in this example, SpongeBob has given me an assignment. I have a
You're
full-time
not
job.
looking for assignments, Wanji?
Right now I am not looking for external assignments. So giving me an
That's so
assignment,
funny.
you're now not only are you not collaboratively networking with me and helping me, you are giving me an assignment that I don't have time for. So what would be a better way to go in that scenario? What you might say in that scenario is SpongeBob might say, you know what, um, I've been looking at Pinterest's website because he knows he's meeting with me and he knows where I work. He might also say, you know what, I noticed you used to work at Discover and I looked at their website as well, or PayPal or American Express. And there are a few roles that I have posted for. And would it be possible for you to either connect me to people or just help me get my resume in the right hands and let them know I've applied? That I can do. That
Right.
I'm more than willing to do. I actually am not the right person to review a stranger's resume. I will do that. Not because I'm like too good for that. I'm like just really busy. And so I will do that. Just to give an example, I will do that for a very close friend's son.
Sure.
I will do that for anyone in my immediate family.
Hmm.
And then there are like a few other kind of tangential examples, but I'm not going to be able to like meet you at a conference and, nice to meet you, Chip. I'm not going to be able to review your resume. And that's only because so many people ask me to do that. And it's just really, my kind of first priority, which is my day job, would suffer, and that would be silly unless I'm trying to get in the business of reviewing people's resumes, which right now I'm not. So I would say help people to help you.
Yeah.
Put yourself in their shoes and try to make it easy for them to help you. When people make it easy for me to help them, so for example, like, look, I just posted for this job. If you could forward this note on to the head of talent, the talent recruitment person, or the hiring manager, where you put the note together saying, I'm Wanji Walcott. I've posted for XYZ position. My resume is attached. Here are the top
Hmm.
4 reasons why you should consider me. That I can forward on. But you just basically telling me to do that work? No.
That's really good. And it's and maybe people get desperate and they don't realize what they're actually
Asking for?
asking. But we see it too. People send us. They do the same thing. Here's my
Yeah.
resume. If you know of anybody that's hiring, it's like if they actually will go through a career transition program with us, we'll help
Yeah.
them see that they're actually trying to get other people to do the work for them, and
Right.
that's just not. I don't know what universe they're part of, but that generally is not
Yeah.
the way
That's
things
not
go.
going to land. Yeah.
How about like cover letters or introductions? Like, what are some typical things you see that could be a lot better?
So I think again, I'm not reading cover letters, but AI is.
Mm.
I would just make sure that kind of the right keywords are used that are authentic. Not don't, put in, I'm great at engineering if you're not an engineer. So the right keywords that are authentic in your cover letter will go a long way because I think fewer and fewer humans are actually spending time on this. Maybe a human's glancing at it, um, but probably not because when I think about our experience at Pinterest and in other places, we're not a huge company. It may be, that 10x. So we will get somewhere between 1,000 and 1,500 applicants for an open role.
Wow.
All right. So if it's one of my direct reports, I'm not looking at 1,000 resumes or 1,000 cover letters. And there are so many people ahead of me who are doing, like, including AI, who are doing screening before it even gets to me. So I would just be thoughtful about kind of how you position those documents so that they can get picked up. And you might be wondering, well, what are the magic words? Well, you have to look at the job spec or requisition or job posting very closely to see what we're looking for. Because you can't, this whole like, I'm going to just send my resume to 100 random places.
Yeah. Pray and spray, I think it's called.
Yeah, yeah, that I don't think is really effective in this environment. I don't know if there is an environment where that is effective, but it's not now.
Well, you can actually
So
use AI to screen the job posting to figure out what the keywords are. So there's no.
absolutely, great point, Chip. You can do that. So you can figure this out.
Yeah,
You can
it's
definitely
doable.
figure this out very quickly, and then you can just again, it goes back to tailoring your resume and cover letter based on those keywords. So I would say that is time well spent for sure. If you want an interview, if you just want to be in the practice of sending out your resume, then don't do any of these things. Yeah.
Great. That's great advice. Say one last thread I'd like to pull on is the faith thread. Like, how does your faith give you, like, what's it provide for you and the kind of ups and downs of work, many number of changes, and the whole landscape shifts on a dime. And you guys, how's that play into your life
Um,
as an executive?
I would say I really feel like I have a purpose in life, and it's to serve others. And the role that I'm in, I'm definitely in service to so many others, and that gives me a lot of fulfillment.
Hmm.
And then just kind of positivity, which is great for me because it's what our business is all about, but it also kind of ties to my faith as well. Just kind of having an attitude, knowing that, I've been blessed with so much, and there are so many who have not been blessed and are having real problems. And so
Hmm.
when you think that whenever I start to feel like, oh my gosh, I'm like in having such a problem, I, probably just turn on the news and realize like, we have it pretty good. And so it just gives me a lot of perspective about kind of what's really important versus what's not. And then that kind of impacts how I react to things, both in the heat of the moment and not. And I just kind of want to show up kind of more Christ-like than not. And it goes back to kind of how people remember you and the
Yeah.
impressions you leave on people. And so that's sort of, as someone whose ministry is the workplace and a corporate environment, that's kind of how I've always kind of navigated.
It's great. You have an anchor and a sense of security that and blessing that kind of carries you through that. That's
Absolutely.
well, Wanji, as always, a tour de force and great advice and a wonderful conversation. And I think our listeners are really going to benefit from the counsel that you've shared. And it's always great to see you. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for the opportunity and good luck to all the job seekers. Go
Good
get the
luck.
jobs.
That's exactly right.